Spirit 1053. Hi, this is Erica.
Hi, Erica. This is Bennett calling in.
I am delighted to meet you. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Well, I'm excited to talk with you because I think that mental health is so important, especially from a Christian perspective. And I love how you advocate for it. So I'm excited to pick your brain.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's such an important topic, and it's not something talked about enough, especially as a Christian perspective. So I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, this is so cool. Ben, why is our mental health just as important as our physical health?
Well, God is in the restoration business, the restoration of all things. When Jesus came, he didn't just care about your spiritual health. He cared about your physical health and your mental health.
Yeah.
He's all about shalom and bringing peace and restoring all things. And so physically, a lot of times we talk about going to the gym, working out, eating right, and yet our bodies and our minds are so connected. For example, everybody deals with mental health. Just a lot of times we don't realize this. Everybody deals with mental health just like everyone deals with physical health. If all of us have been sick, all of us at times in life deal with certain ailments, but we don't realize that all of us, our mental health is affected. We deal with stress, we deal with grief, we deal with worry and anxiety.
Yeah.
And we can't neglect that because otherwise it can just continue to spiral, and what we neglect continues to deteriorate.
What are some signs that maybe we're struggling with our mental health?
Worry, if you find yourself worrying, having trouble sleeping, if you're losing interest in daily activities, if you're wanting to isolate from people, all of those things are common things that I've seen the past 15 years, working with individuals, helping them identify it in their life. A lot of times we tend to think that that there has to be overt symptoms,
Yep.
like panic attacks and high states of anxiety or deep grief, but that's not the case. There's a spectrum of mental health challenges that all of us face.
What is a baby step that someone can take today if they just heard you say that little list of things? And it's like, yep, that's me. I haven't wanted to face this. What's a baby step that person can take today?
Well, the first thing is we need to normalize this in our own lives and in Christian circles. I mean, if you look at the Bible, you see that Job was a blameless man, and yet he in Job 4 said, "Why did I not die when my mother gave birth to me?" He became so depressed, he wished he had never been born. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane was so overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. The psalmist, Psalm 42, says, "My tears have been my food day and night." And so we are not less spiritual. We don't lack faith if we're struggling with our mental health. We're human. And so normalizing it and saying this is part of the Christian life and it's okay, and I don't need to run from this. I don't need to ignore this. I can normalize it. I can reach out for help. I can press into God and others and seek the support I need.
I'm a big believer in Christian counseling. How does that help somebody right off the bat? Like, that's a great step today. Hey, call a Christian counselor, right?
Yeah, exactly. It can help you get the tools you need. So many of us, we think that, or we're told that this is just a spiritual problem, and so it needs a spiritual solution. But as we see Jesus walking the earth, he didn't treat everything as a spiritual problem. There are physical problems. There are emotional problems. I mean, Jesus himself wept, the shortest verse in Scripture. There are spiritual realities affecting everything in life, but there's also things that are just part of a fallen world. And so in my journey, the past 17 years of working through anxiety and depression and OCD, counseling has really helped me bring awareness into what's really going on. And I see this biblically. I encourage people to get curious because the psalmist does this when he asks, "Why are you downcast, O my soul?" He's questioning, what is this really about? And so we need to question the struggle rather than condemning the struggle. And so I learned in my life through counseling, the anxiety wasn't random. It was my brain trying to protect me based on something that it learned. God wired our brains for repeated patterns to make life easier. He gave us a fight or flight system in our brain. And so often that can get hijacked in a fallen world where we start to live on alert, constantly scanning things in the present or in the future, remind us of things that have hurt us in the past.
Yes.
That's why we're told to, Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of our mind. That's why we're told to think about things that are true, noble, right, and pure. And so getting curious and bringing this awareness of thinking about the things we're thinking about. For me, growing up in a chaotic home, my brain learned to always be on alert, scanning, anxious, seeking to protect me. But what I thought was just part of my personality or simply something I was born with was actually my nervous system that never learned it was safe. And so I had to take these steps I learned in counseling to be transformed by the renewing of my mind.
Wow, that is just absolutely awesome. I was on your Instagram earlier and pleasantly surprised to read 3 surprising things Jesus taught about mental health. And Ben, I was hoping we could go through all 3 because this is so valuable.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What's the first one? What's the one that really stands out to you?
I'm going to have to pull that up because okay, here it is. Because I post every single day so many things. The first one is that he taught to redirect our thoughts.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times we read Matthew 6, where he says to do not be anxious about tomorrow, to look at the birds of the air and the lilies of the field, and we don't really take the time to really understand what he's doing. But what he's doing is he's teaching our mind where to go when anxiety hits. In my opinion, he's using what psychologists call mindfulness. He's getting you to slow down and think about what you're thinking about and to be present rather than be consumed by tomorrow. And he's getting you in your body and you're looking around at the birds and the lilies and you're observing rather than being consumed by your thoughts.
Wow.
So you're redirecting your thoughts to the present, refocusing your attention on your surroundings and what is true, what's concrete, what's safe, and then acknowledging God, that God provides, that God is there, that those birds don't have worries.
Right.
Those lilies don't have worries. How much more valuable are you? It's such a beautiful practice.
Oh, all right. The second thing, a surprising thing Jesus taught about mental health.
So surprising, especially to us who grew up in the church, because he modeled that emotions need to be named and that we don't need to ignore our emotions. You know, so often we've had this kind of idea of faith, not feelings. Don't trust your emotions. But we see all throughout the Bible that God shows his emotions.
Yeah.
God created emotions. They're part of his good creation and what it means to be made in the image of God. Doesn't mean we want to follow our emotions or be led by our emotions, but it's important to name them. Jesus didn't suppress his emotions. He named them out loud. He said in the Garden of Gethsemane, my soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. As I talked about earlier, he wept. He felt anguish. He asked friends to stay close in the Garden of Gethsemane. We miss that.
Yes.
He didn't want to be alone in his sorrow and overwhelm and grief. He named those emotions. It's a biblical mental health practice.
Wow.
It's not weakness. We shouldn't ignore them. We should name them, then figure out what to do about it.
Amazing. I am just taking in everything you're saying. This is so good, Ben. The third surprising thing Jesus taught about mental health.
He taught that the mind can be formed. We're not just at the expense of our thoughts. We can control our thoughts. We can't necessarily control what comes into our minds. A lot of people, I was reading a study recently, over 90% of people deal with intrusive thoughts. We don't know where they come from or whatnot. We don't have to fear them. We don't have to be overwhelmed by them. We can change our mind, renew our minds. Jesus taught us to train our minds, to meditate on truth, to challenge lies, to reshape thinking patterns. He says, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So many people quote, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, but they forget that it's in context of, if you hold to my teaching. So that implies what we're thinking about, our minds, what we're meditating on, holding to his teachings, seeking to understand them and apply them. And that is what's going to set us free as we live them out.
Ben, I feel like you're offering so much hope today. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Sabbath, taking that day of rest, because I have found that the more I take up the Lord on his invitation to slow down on Sunday, the better I do that day and throughout the week.
I have been practicing a 24-hour Sabbath since, it's been about 5 years. And the way I see it is it's like Christmas every week. I slow down. I don't do anything that feels like work. I delight in the Lord. I hang out with friends. I don't know if I could say this, but I have a cigar and listen to a good podcast. And what I have found is that as I intentionally, that 24 hours, slow down my body and my mind, it trickles over into the week to the point where 5 years ago in ministry and what I was doing here, I was often so stressed. I kept being irritated throughout the day. I'm doing too much. I'm driving too fast. And now I find that most days I don't even get stressed. I'm just living at a sustainable pace, seeking to walk with the Lord. And research shows that the majority of diseases are caused by stress, caused by cortisol. So I had this saying, I was like, some things are not worth the cortisol. Everybody's just sipping this cortisol cocktail in our society and stressed out and burning out, and it's affecting them physically, like we talked about earlier. There's a mind and body connection, and Jesus was just not about that. And so following his principles, slowing down for 24 hours a week has been so helpful, and it's affected the rest of my week.
Thank you for sharing that. Ben, one thing I feel like we have normalized is mental health day. I need a mental health day. Kids ask for that, and even grown-ups ask their bosses for that. What if we took I need a mental day and changed it to I need a mental health lifestyle? What would happen to the inside of our bodies?
Amen. That's so good. I mean, I, for years, have been saying that biblical self-care is creating or cultivating a life you don't regularly have to escape from. Escape is what addiction is about. You know, we don't want to live in such a pace and with such poor mental health that we necessarily need to take a mental health day. Yeah, sometimes there's stressful seasons and a lot going on and grief, and we need that day. But if every day we were slowing down more, we were caring for our mind, our body, we were living at a sustainable pace. This is a shift I made 5 years ago with the Sabbath and after I went on sabbatical. And I was like, I want to make it the long run in ministry. I want to give out of an overflow of what God is doing in my life. My mentor, Josh McDowell, who I co-founded Resolution Movement, this ministry I lead with, says, don't practice what you preach. Preach what you practice. There's a big difference there. And so I have sought to and seen the effects of my mental health is good. I'm continuing to grow. I'm continuing to practice these things. And the more and more I grow and learn and apply, so much of my ministry the past 15 years is born from my own struggles and what God has done in my life and healed. And I'm saying, come follow Jesus. Come apply these principles of Jesus that he has used in my own life to bring healing and freedom.
Ben Bennett, you are talking directly to my spirit. I would love to have you back. You mentioned Josh McDowell, and I know you guys co-wrote a book called Free to Thrive. So I would love to have you back on the show because you are wonderful.
Thank you so much, Erica. A delight to be with you today.
Same. Let's talk again, and God bless you. You helped me, so I know that our listening family is going to get blessed.
Thank you so much.
God bless.